back to what happened in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. In 68, this is just an absolutely amazing story. And by the way, kudos to Robert Perry for really blowing this thing out. Over at consortiumnews.com, you can read the whole story. He wrote it on December 9th. And, he says, you might have thought that when audio tapes were released of President Lyndon Johnson accusing Richard Nixon of treason for sabotaging the Vietnam peace talks, as 500,000 U.S. troops sat in a war zone, the major U.S. news media would be all over, right? You'd think that this would be a big story. It wasn't. It isn't. It has been only marginally covered. And this is really incredible. I mean, this is, here's, again, LBJ talking to Dirksen, and he's talking about the boss in New Mexico. He's talking about the Nixon campaign is talking with Thu, with the Vietnamese government, and saying, don't negotiate with LBJ. Don't negotiate with LBJ. Wait until the election, and if we can get Nixon elected, we'll give you a better deal.
The agent says that they just talked to the boss in New Mexico, and that he says that you must hold out. That just hold on until after the election. Now, we know what Chew is saying to them out there.
Yeah.
We're pretty well informed on both ends.
Yeah.
See, this is where LBJ is saying, we know what's going on. We know that this treason is being committed. Here he's on a conference call with Clark Clifford, Dean Rusk, Rostow, and Jones, and talking about Nixon's campaign.
I don't want to have information that ought to be public and not make it so. On the other hand, we have a lot of, I don't know how much we can do there, and I know we'll be charged with trying to interfere with the election.
See, he's talking about, he's got information that Nixon has committed treason. He's blowing up a war and blowing up in order to try and win an election. He's blowing up peace negotiations. And a reporter for the Christian Science Monitor is on the case. And Johnson is trying to shut down the reporter from the Christian Science Monitor because he thinks it's in the best interest of the country not to reveal that one of the two candidates for president has committed treason. He continues.
He has a deadline to meet if he publishes it. Right. He speculated that should the story be published, it will create a great deal of excitement. Right. Now, what he gets from Saigon is well and good and fine, but if he gets it from us, I want to be sure that, A, we try to do it such a way that our motives are not questioned and that the public interest requires it, and two, and that's the only thing I want to operate under. I'm not interested in the politics of it. The second thing is I want to be sure that what we say can be confirmed.
So here's LBJ, and he's very concerned about this. And Clark Clifford says, no, this would be bad for the country.
Dean just says he doesn't think that we can confirm or say anything or have any comment in connection with it on the basis of the sensitivity of the information.
Well, I would think there'd be a good deal of merit to that. I'd go on to another reason also.
So the audio is really bad, but you listen carefully. Here's Clark Clifford saying this would be bad for the country.
That is, I think that some elements of the story are so shocking.
Some elements of this story are so shocking
in their nature that I'm wondering whether it would be good for the country. To disclose the story and then possibly have a certain individual.
To disclose this story and then have a certain individual, that of course being Richard Nixon,
elected. It could cast his whole administration under such doubt.
And it would cast his whole administration under such doubt that he couldn't govern. So here Clark Clifford is saying, if Nixon wins the election, and we reveal here 2 days before the election, this is November 2nd, that we know that he's committed treason, that will be a bad thing for the United States. Now, these were politicians who were really, LBJ was clearly really struggling with this thing. In another one of these clips, he talks about how we've got a peace here. We've got a couple of weeks of peace. The killing has stopped. And now Nixon is going in and blowing this thing up, and it's going to start again, and people are going to die. He says this to Everett Dirksen. And then, by the way, the next day, Nixon calls him up, and he confronts Nixon about it, and Nixon lies through his teeth and says, I don't know anything about it. But then later on, we've got in the Nixon tapes, you got Nixon sitting with Chuck Colson talking about how LBJ had bugged him back in '68, and that's why in '72 he should be able to bug Watergate. That was his whole justification, right up until the very end. So here now today with Blagojevich and with Fitzgerald, we have the public disclosure of political corruption before it happens. And there's some speculation, I don't know if there's any evidence or not, that perhaps even the Obama folks or Obama or some of his people might have encouraged this public disclosure for the public good. And contrast that with 1968, when Lyndon Johnson had proof positive and the Christian Science Monitor was about to blow open the story. And the Johnson administration quashed it because his attorney general said, no, this is going to be bad for the country. That the Johnson administration said, no, we're not going to blow this story up. We're not going to let America know that Richard Nixon is committing treason. Because what if he gets elected and becomes president? He will be a disabled and crippled president. And that's not good for America. And on the other hand now, this morning, I've got a press release from the RNC, the Republican Party, already trying to tie Obama to what's going on in the Illinois governor's office when he has done a spectacular job of not just keeping distance from it, but apparently helping expose it. So here we have the Republicans once again playing politics with this nation to the detriment of our country. 45 minutes past the hour.